Hey there. Alright, so this is going to be kind of an unsolicited review of Starfield because I've been playing it a lot, and I've just got some things I want to say about it, and it'll make for a good ramble video because it'll give me a lot to talk about. So, there we go. As for spoilers for the game, if you haven't played it yourself and you are hoping to, I'm not going to spoil anything specific by any means, but I suppose I will be talking about the game. So, if you just want to go in completely blind, then I guess you should probably avoid this video. But yeah, that being said, I'm not going to be spoiling any of the specific story points or anything like that, any of the specifics of the quest lines, but yes, I will be talking about the game. So just take for that what you will. Anyway, I've got a little list here of the things that I like and don't like. I'll be using it as a rough guide, but for the most part, this is probably just going to be a bit of a improvised review. No script or anything. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, so I just want to say right off the bat that I have been enjoying Starfield a lot. Like I said in my last video, this game definitely clicked with me more than Fallout 4 did. And I kind of had a feeling going into it that it was going to be more like Fallout 4, but I have enjoyed it quite a bit more than Fallout 4. And while I would say that on the whole I have been enjoying the game, there are some things that I don't really like about it. So let's start off with the cons, I guess, the things I don't like. First and foremost, I would say the worst part of this game, at least the part that stands out to me the most as being like the least developed, the most underdeveloped, or whatever you want to call it, is the stealth. If you want to play a stealth game, like if you want to buy Starfield and play it as a stealth game, then I would not recommend it. The stealth in this game is just not good enough. It's not really there. I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't know if the stealth in this game is worse than Skyrim. I think the problem is that it is the same as Skyrim. And Skyrim's a very old game at this point, and it's just there's a lot of things that aren't there. Let me be a bit more specific, I guess. Okay, so the big problem with the stealth, in my opinion, is the detection, like algorithm or whatever you want to call it. However, the NPCs determine whether or not you've been detected or you have not been detected. It's just very old. It's very old-fashioned at this point. So first of all, and I mean this is kind of something that you see in a lot of games, honestly, and it's something pretty notorious in Bethesda games, especially regarding like Skyrim and stuff like that. But like when an NPC hears you walking or hears you open a door or whatever from like another room or like nearby or whatever, like they don't see you, but they just hear you, they will immediately assume that you are an enemy, which just doesn't make any sense. Like, have you ever just been in your house and, you hear a door open and, you just immediately assumed it was an intruder and not like your mom or something? It's just like people open doors. Like, that's not a direct sign of an intruder, right? So that's a little bit annoying. I know there is a perk in the game that makes it so that when you open doors, they're not alerted. But the fact that that's even a thing is, in my opinion, really weird. Just doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's annoying. But then on top of that, something you see in a lot of modern games, it was probably in a lot of older games too, so there's not really a big excuse for Bethesda to not put this in. But, generally in stealth games, you see where it's like, when the person that detects you, they're the only person that's detected you. And so they have to relay that information to the rest of the people in the compound or facility or wherever you are, right? And typically that gives the player an opportunity to stop that from happening. So, you got detected by one person. It's not the end of the world if you take that person out before they're able to like call up their buddies and be like, yo, there's an intruder in this place, then you can stay away from detection, You see that a lot in games, especially stealth-oriented games. In Starfield, nope. Every single bad guy is connected telepathically via the hive mind. If one person in the facility sees you, every single other person in the facility will simultaneously know exactly where you are and just that you exist at all. It's really quite annoying, honestly, because I mean, I guess it does make the game a lot harder. So if you want like a really hardcore stealth game where like you cannot get spotted at all or it is game over, then maybe the Starfield is the game for you. But honestly, it's just it's not hard in a fun way. It's hard in like a really bullshit way where it's just like, are you kidding me? I got spotted by this guy like in a closet, and this guy 100 feet away on like the third floor on the complete other side of the facility now knows exactly where I am. It's like, I don't know. And again, I have no problem with that being a capability, but it'd be cool if like it took a moment for them to, be like, yo, there's a guy here, and that would give the player an opportunity to stop that from happening. So yeah, the stealth in this game is not particularly great. Also, the rules of detection are really inconsistent. So as an example, there was one mission where I was stealthing around, and there were these two guys in a room, and as with a lot of games, they had this cycle where like they would walk up to each other and like talk for a second, and then they'd walk apart, and then they'd come back together. So like that was their routine, right? So you could watch it, and like you would get an idea of like, okay, so that's their routine. So you can be like, okay, this is when I'm gonna strike. So I waited for them to be apart so that they wouldn't like see their friend die right in front of their eyes, and I killed one of them. And one of the other guys, the other guy in the room, even though they were like, I don't know, 30 to 50 feet apart, he immediately realized that his friend was dead, which, fair enough. That's perfectly fine. I was using a suppressed weapon, by the way, so it wasn't that. That's perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with that. And if you played any Bethesda game, you know that like when an NPC is in like their relaxed state, when they notice something happening, it takes them like a second to be like, all right, I'm in like a combat mode. And within that moment, you've got like a second maybe. Within that moment, I killed the second guy. So before he even fired a shot or even was like fully in combat mode, he was dead. And even though I was able to kill these two people without a single unsuppressed shot being fired or anything like that, there was one person in the facility on a completely different floor, and there are like 30 people in this facility. One guy on a completely different floor somewhere was in combat mode. He was aware that I existed. No one else in the facility was aware I existed, just this one guy. It was just really weird, and there's like people in the room with him, and he's like searching. Okay, well, I won't say that, but he's like searching around, and none of his friends care, but he cares very much so. It's just really weird. And there were like other people closer to me than this guy, but he's the only one that realized. So it seems like if you kill someone, if there's anyone else even remotely close, and sometimes it doesn't even have to be close, it seems, everyone else is just going to know when you kill them. So you can only kill people when they're completely alone. Except in that same mission, I was in a different room in this facility. And there was a guy, there was this big open room, and there was like a catwalk. And so there's one guy on the catwalk, and then there's two guys like down in the rest of the room. But it's a big wide open room. So I'm thinking, okay, if I kill any one of these three guys, everyone's going to know. There's no way I can kill any of these people without alerting everyone. But I had to get past the one guy on the catwalk. There was like no other way around him. At least I couldn't find one. So I was like, well, shit, I'm going to have to shoot this guy, and it's going to devolve. Like, stealth is not an option at this point. So I was fully ready for that to happen. I shoot the guy on the catwalk, and no one cares. They're like in the same room, like 5 feet away, and no one cares. So the rules of stealth are really inconsistent. The stealth in general is just not really super fleshed out, unfortunately. So, yeah, not the best. Not the best stealth in any game by any means. But I suppose it's not really the point of the game. But I mean, because it's an option in the game, you would think it would be a little bit better. So a little disappointing that the stealth isn't a little bit better than it is. And I mean, like I said, I'm not asking for too much here. It'd be cool if there was a bit more consistency. Like, at least if the rules are bullshit, but they're consistent, then I can learn them and, deal with it. But because the rules are so inconsistent, it just seems like you basically have to take a wild guess, do whatever you're going to do, and if it works out, it works out, and if it doesn't, well, you're fucked. I guess I'll go back and forth between the good and the bad. So that was a bad. For the good, also this video is going to be really long, and I'm probably not going to be able to record all of it, so I'm going to try to speed this up. For the good, there are so many voice actors. You remember in Skyrim how there's like 1,000 characters and they hired like 3 voice actors? There would be like the same guy voicing like 5 characters in the same room in Skyrim. It wasn't quite that bad, but it was pretty bad. You would very, very regularly meet people, sometimes like in the same room, that were using the same voice actor. In Starfield, I have no idea how many people they hired to be voice actors, because I haven't come across a single person in the game that has the same voice actor as another character. It is insane. And there's a lot of characters in this game. Honestly, I think there's more characters in this game than there were in Skyrim. It is ridiculous. I have no idea how many voice actors they hired, but it is awesome. It's really cool. There are some people that have the same voice, so like when you land at a city, there's a ship technician that you can buy new ships from and like modify your existing ships. It seems like that guy always has the same voice no matter what planet you're on. I guess that was just a cost-cutting measure, just to have one guy voice that and just use it over and over again. I guess it also just kind of keeps it consistent, so like, it's a bit more convenient for the player to be like, okay, this is the ship technician guy because that's his voice, I know that voice. But yeah, I have not come across, at least, see, the thing is that in Skyrim there were so few voice actors that it was very common to meet people with the same voice, and like back to back too, so it was like very jarring, like very obvious. I don't doubt that there probably are people voiced by the same voice actor in Starfield, but the thing is that it takes so long for you to get from this person with this voice to the next person with the same voice that you completely forget, and so I just haven't noticed it. So yeah, I haven't come across anyone that has like the same voice actor, and it's really cool because it just makes all the characters seem a lot more believable, a lot more unique. It makes the world seem a lot more alive and more diverse, which is really cool, especially in this type of game, which is like, that's a big draw, right? It's like an RPG. It's like you want to feel immersed, and it does a good job at doing that, so that's really cool. Let's see, what else do we have? Okay, kind of in the same vein, this is going back to the cons side. I guess this is something that I should have expected going into it, but it has been a while since I played Skyrim. Like I said, I played Skyrim a lot, but it's just been a long time since I played it, because, you get to a certain point with any game, no matter how good it is, where you're just like, I've played it a lot. It's kind of done, And so I've gotten to that point with Skyrim, and I haven't played it in a long time. So I guess I should have been expecting this, but the quests in Starfield function very similarly to Skyrim, where you're not really allowed to complete them in a way that is unintended. And by that I mean, like, if you have a quest objective where the quest objective is to go and talk to this guy, right? You have to go and talk to that guy. You can't go and talk to someone else first. Like, there's not going to be like a dynamic voice line where, like, maybe I want to talk to this person first to see what they're going to say about it. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. So it is a little unfortunate, because there are certain situations and certain quests where it's like the quest objective, like the thing you need to do, doesn't to me seem like the thing you would do in real life. Like, I think I should probably go to this person first rather than just go straight to this person, and there's like no way to do that, so that's a little annoying, a little unfortunate. Like I said, that's just kind of the way Bethesda games have always been, so it's not really, maybe that's just on me for not remembering that that's the case, but a little bit of an annoyance on my part, just because like I said, a lot of times, I mean, it's not every time, but a lot of times it seems like the thing they tell you to do is not the thing that I would personally do in that situation. So it's just something you got to deal with. going back to the pros, and this is going to sound kind of contradictory with the last one I just said, but the number of dynamic voice lines in the game is insane. I mean, they hired like a billion voice actors, and they must have made each one of them do like a billion lines. I have no idea. It's insane. Specifically with regard to your follower. Now, having a follower was something I never really did in Skyrim because I just didn't feel like it did much, honestly. Like, they were just there to help you in combat, but the combat in Skyrim wasn't really that hard. Pretty easy, honestly. So I never really felt like I needed to have the follower there, right? If anything, I just felt like the intention of the follower was just to add immersion to the experience by, like, just being there, I guess, and having someone to talk to. But in Skyrim, they didn't really function in that way. But in Starfield, they do. And I would argue that in Starfield, having a follower is almost like a requirement. It's obviously not, but for me personally, I highly recommend it just because it's so cool to see, like, you'll be doing a quest and your follower has like nothing to do with this quest. Like, you got this follower from a completely different quest line, and now you're doing something like on the other side of the galaxy, like just completely unrelated. And your follower will butt in on this conversation and they'll like give their 2 cents. And it's like really cool to see like all of this like dynamic voice lines and stuff. It's really cool. So the followers are really cool. There's a lot of dynamic voice lines. I know, like I said, that kind of contradicts with what I was just saying, how like there aren't dynamic dialogue options where you can't just like walk up to people and just ask them whatever. And kind of in the same vein, the followers have a lot of dynamic voice lines, but they also don't, in a way where it's like, so they add a lot to conversations where you're having like any quest dialogue where like you're doing the intentional dialogue with another NPC. Your follower will often butt in, and that's really cool. But at the same time, when you're doing a quest, your follower seems completely unaware of like the context of the quest, even when the quest directly regards to your follower, which there are a lot of like follower quests where like you're doing a quest with a follower and your follower is like tied to you, like you can't dismiss them. So like it was intended for them to be there, right? You would think that in those quests that the follower would be very context aware of like what you're doing, and you could talk to them at any time and they would have like something to say. And a lot of times they do not, and that's a little jarring, honestly. A little bit of a disappointment, but I get it. I mean, there's already like a billion voice lines in this game. I have no idea how they put as many things in as they did, but it would have been cool to see a bit more, I guess. I don't know. Beggars can't be choosers. I'm a needy guy, I guess. I don't know. We'll go back to the pros. The pro, there's kind of in the same vein, but there are so many NPCs, so many factions, so many quests. I mean, it was kind of the case in Skyrim where like, you're just walking through the town, and like in classic Bethesda fashion, people will just give you their life story as you're like walking by, and it's like, people don't do that in real life. But that's how they allow you to get random quests. In Starfield, it's even crazier. You can't walk 10 feet without someone giving you a quest. It is insane. There are so many quests. There are so many factions. I mean, I've been playing for a while now, and I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of like all of the factions and all of the quests and stuff. So it's pretty insane. So that's pretty cool. On the flip side of that, though, I feel like they maybe toned down how long some of these quests are. And so this is going to dip kind of into, this is kind of a middle ground, honestly, because I can see this going either way, depending on who you are as a player and what you prefer. But, so in Skyrim, when you would do like a faction quest, let's take the Thieves Guild, for instance, So you would initiate yourself into the Thieves Guild by doing some mission, right? And then you would come back to like the lair, and you'd be like, hey, I completed that mission. And they'd be like, cool, now do some of this bullshit. And they'd give you like 3 random assignments that were like really not important at all. And then you would do those, and you'd come back, and then you'd do like a main story mission, and then you'd do that, and you'd come back, and then they'd give you another 3 like bullshit assignments, and you would kind of do that back and forth, where you do some bullshit, then you do some important shit, then you do some bullshit, then you do some important shit. And while, the bullshit, it didn't really do anything, at least in like the big picture. The one thing it does do is it draws out the faction quest line. In Starfield, they've gotten rid of a lot of that bullshit, where like the faction quests are basically just you're doing important shit over and over again. But as a result, the quests are a lot shorter because they're not padded out with a bunch of bullshit. So like, see, like on the one hand, I can see a lot of people liking that because maybe you didn't like all the random bullshit they made you do in Skyrim. But on the other hand, the quests are a lot shorter feeling. Like, it's just kind of over. And you're like, oh, that's it? I thought it was going to take a little bit longer than that. I think this is also heavily impacted by all of the fast travel in Starfield. It's a lot easier in Starfield to just go from objective back to the lair, to objective, to back to the lair instantaneously because of all of the fast travel. In Skyrim, they would give you an objective and you would have to walk there, and inevitably you would be doing a lot of things on the way. Whereas in Starfield, they give you an objective, you warp straight there, you do the objective, and you warp straight back. So it's a lot faster to just like get shit done, like a checklist in Starfield. And I think that just makes the quests feel a lot shorter. I completed a lot of the faction quest lines before I even like realized that they were over. It was like a little bit on the disappointing side, I would say, for me personally. Now, to be fair, I don't know that every single faction quest line has this option, but some of them do. There are like mission boards that you can like interact with, and they give you a bunch of bullshit. So like they've essentially, it seems like they've given the control to the player to decide if they want to pad out these quest lines with bullshit in between. So you have that option. Like I said, I don't know that that's actually an option for every single faction, but some of them do have that option. But I only found out about that after I had completed a lot of these faction quest lines. So I was like, oh, I guess I should have been doing these in between to like make it feel more significant, So I feel like they could have done a little bit better to like inform you that that was an option. I don't know. I like I said, I see it both ways. I do see the good. I see the bad. I think personally for me, I preferred the way Skyrim did it, where it's like, yeah, it's meaningless bullshit, but it makes it feel like you're doing more for the faction rather than just like being like doing important things all the time. Just, I don't know. That's just me. Anyway, going back to the pros, there's a lot of cool locations, really cool locations. I mean, this was the case with Bethesda, or not Bethesda, with Skyrim too. There's a lot of cool locations in Skyrim. There's a lot of really cool locations in Starfield. A lot of cool set pieces too. Again, I don't want to give away specifics of any of the quest lines, but I was doing some of the quest lines, and there's some like really cool like set pieces, like where the final fight takes place or whatever, and it's like there's really cool fights that happen. Honestly, I would say they surpass Skyrim in a lot of ways. In Skyrim, you didn't really have these like grand set pieces. I would say like the only grand set pieces were in regards to the Civil War, where like you would have like the invasion of Whiterun. That was like a cool set piece where you're in like this big battle, right? Or like the initial fight with like Alduin, where like shit's going crazy and stuff like that, So they existed in Skyrim, but they're a lot more common in Starfield, I would say. So that's cool, and the locations are really cool. They also, again, this is kind of like a middle point where it's like some people will probably like it, some people will probably dislike it, but in Skyrim and previous Bethesda games, every single NPC was important in some way. They were all named NPCs, and they all had a role to play, even if it was only for like a minute in like this super obscure quest line. Like they all had something to add to the game. in Starfield, as a way to like make the cities feel more alive, they've put a lot of nameless citizens like just walking around. So like most of the people that you see are not able to be interacted with. So, you know, some people will like that. It does make the cities feel a lot more alive. I get it. You know, obviously they can't populate these cities with thousands of actually important NPCs. But it is a little bit of a bummer, I suppose, that you can't just like up and talk to every single person. Honestly, though, I would say that I prefer this way that they've done it, simply because, you know, it kind of makes sense, you know, because not every single person out there is going to be some important person that, you know, is going to be someone that's going to give you a quest or be someone worth talking to, you know. A lot of people are just going to be like going about their life, you know. So, I don't personally have a problem with that, but I can see some people probably would. Let's see, what else do we have on here? Okay, we've got the loot pool. The loot pool. I think it's bugged. So in the game, okay, we're getting the storage flashing icon. So we might go black here. I'll try and do the record again method and see if that works. Or the rest of this video might just be black. We'll see what happens. But anyway. In the game, there are these cases that have mannequins in them, and they typically have like armor on them that you can take. It's just like, you know, in Skyrim you had like chests that would have loot in them. It's the same thing, except in this case the chest is a mannequin and the loot you get off of it is always some kind of armor, right? However, I think these are bugged because the mannequins are always wearing the lowest level gear, like the starter gear, like the exact thing that you start the game with. That's always what they're wearing, no matter what. I was doing a quest where the mannequin case was locked with a master lock. If you've played Skyrim, you know that the master lock is the hardest lock to pick, which means typically that there's some really good stuff behind that door or in that chest or whatever, right? So I was like, holy shit, there's gonna be some cool ass gear in here. So I unlock it, and it's nothing. It's just the starter gear. So I think there's something bugged about that. Either that or they just are just fucking with us. I don't know, but I think it's probably bugged. The whole loot pool in general seems a little bugged, probably because within like the first 2 hours, probably like one of the first pieces of gear I ever got, and we've lost video, so let me try and get this back. Okay, we're going back. One of the first pieces of gear I ever got in the game was like this legendary armor that was like amazing. And I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to have this yet, because I got it like immediately right off the bat and it was super good. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure if there's something wrong with the loot pool. I used that piece of armor for like a really long time, and honestly my character is using worse armor now, and I've only started using the armor that I'm using now, which is worse than the armor I got right off the bat, simply because I like how the new armor looks more than the armor that I was using previously. So a little bit weird there. Also, in regard to armor, and this extends to the weapons too. So you have the different rarities, like I was saying. The armor I got right off the bat was legendary. So you've got common, uncommon, rare, and legendary. So it's like gray, blue, purple, and gold. And then the different rarities of the gear that you get, they have like built-in perks. So like that legendary armor that I got had the perk where like you go invisible if you're crouched and standing still, which was like, again, usually invisibility is like a pretty high level skill in Bethesda games. So I was like, I feel like I should not have this at this point, because it was like right off the bat. And at this point I'm pretty convinced that I was not supposed to have that, but who knows. But anyway, so these items have perks on them. The weapons are the same way. They'll have their own perks. But there's no way to add these perks to existing gear that you have, which means that if you find something that you think looks really cool, but it's only like a common or an uncommon and not like a rare or legendary, then you're just going to be missing out on those perks, which I think is a little sad, especially when the gear that you want is something that you can't seem to find, right? Like, again, I don't want to give away specifics or anything, but the gear that I'm using currently, I don't think you can get it from looting things. I mean, there's a chance that it's just extremely rare, but I got it as like a result of doing a quest, a very specific quest, and it's all common gear, so it doesn't have any perks. But I don't think you can just find like legendary variants of it just out there in the world. So I have a choice right now where I have to decide between looking cool in the game and getting gear that actually works well. It'd be cool if there was like a way to add those perks to your gear, even if it was like some super high level skill, which I think would be fair because, obviously that would be really powerful. There are already ways to modify your gear via like workbenches and stuff. So it would be cool if that was a feature, because to me, in Skyrim you had like the blacksmithing skill, and then you also had enchantments. So, you could improve your gear stat-wise using the workbenches in Skyrim. And that would just like improve the stats. But then you could also add on top of that the enchantments, which would add like augmentations to the gear. To me, in Starfield, the workbenches are like the workbenches in Skyrim, where you're just kind of improving the stats of your gear. And there's no equivalent like enchantment table in Starfield where like you can add perks to the gear. So I think something like that would be really cool if that was in the game, but it is not, as far as I can tell. There's no way to add perks to your gear. So if you find something that you think looks really cool, but it's like it just doesn't have very good stats, like you're just kind of fucked. There's nothing you can do to like make it look cool. Because like in Skyrim, if you found something that you thought looked cool, even if it wasn't the best, you could always improve it or enchant it to make it pretty much the best, which I thought was cool. I do see it both ways. I think some people will prefer it this way because it does incentivize you to go out and, search for gear, instead of just like, you know, finding some piece of shit gear and then just improving it yourself to make it better than everything else you can find in the game. You actually do have to go out there and find like good stuff. But just for me personally, the way I play the game and what I incentivize when playing a game, I think it'd be cool to be able to modify the gear after the fact. Okay, let's see, what else? The shipbuilder. The shipbuilder is really cool. Not much else to say about that. It's just really cool. It's really cool being able to customize and like make your own ship with your own layout. I guess the only thing I'd say is it'd be cool if there were a bit fewer limitations on the shipbuilder, like being able to make ships a little bit bigger. I know there are mods on PC that allow you to make a ship basically as big as you want, I'm pretty sure. But obviously I'm playing on console, so that is not an option for me. But yeah, the shipbuilder's still really cool. There's a lot of like I mean, calling them combinations is like an understatement. Like it's literally limitless, the number of things you can do with it. So it's really cool. I think the outposts function in pretty much the same way, but I, as of this point, pretty deep into the game, have not even touched outpost. It's just not something I'm super interested in. So I don't know if I'll ever get around to doing that, but I assume that's probably the same way. So if you're really into building outposts, then that's probably the same. There's a lot of different ways that you can configure your outpost to be exactly what you want. So that's really cool. The planets are unique. That's pretty cool. The closest comparison to this game, I would say, is probably No Man's Sky. And in No Man's Sky, a lot of the planets feel identical, in my opinion. I haven't played that game in a long time, so maybe they've changed that. Maybe the planets feel a lot more unique now after a lot of the updates. I know they have changed the game quite a lot, but at least when I played it, right when it came out, it seemed like every planet was identical pretty much. It didn't really matter where you were. It was basically just, this planet has this color scheme, but it looks exactly the same, and this planet has this color scheme. Whereas in Starfield, the planets actually do feel pretty unique. and it's cool to like explore around them. I will say that the planets with life on them are more interesting, not only visually but also like in regards to gameplay. They're just more fun to be on. But even the barren planets are interesting, at least, and I feel like each one has, more uh, more to do on it, I guess, than in No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky was just pretty barren. I don't know. I will say, kind of tipping more into the cons, the facilities that randomly generate on any planet that you land on. I would have liked to have seen a bit more variety with those. You do kind of tend to see a lot of the same facilities, and not only that, but like they're generated in the same exact way. So like loot is in the same place in every single one of them. I don't know, maybe that's a bug. It honestly is kind of weird how like, procedural generation plays such a big role in this game with like the planets and everything. But then all of like the facilities are exactly the same down to like where the loot is placed. It's kind of weird. You would have thought that they'd like have done that differently. I don't know. Considering like the ship builder, it's all like module based. So like you've got like a chunk, like a module, like this is like your habitat, and then you've got like your shield generator and like all this stuff. You would have thought that they'd do something similar for all of the facilities, so that like there's a seemingly endless number of variations of all of these facilities. I guess I understand that, when you do that, when you go that route, you run into the risk of, some of them being really uninteresting, or, there's always going to be or not an incentive, but a reason, I guess. I can't, that's not the word, but there's always going to be an improvement of, that's not the word either, but I guess the way I'm going to say it is stuff that is manually made by humans, purposefully made to be a specific way, is always going to be better, at least right now with our current technology, than stuff that is procedurally made. Like procedural generation is cool in the sense that it makes a bunch of variations, but they can be kind of boring, right? So that's kind of the risk you run. So I get that, but you would still think that it would have been something they would have considered. Maybe they did consider it and they just decided not to do it. Or maybe it is bugged and, that was the intention, but it's just not working in the game. I'm not sure. But yeah, some of the facilities are kind of, well, not even kind of, they're just identical. And you do see kind of the same thing over and over again, which is a little unfortunate because actually, I guess on the one hand, the good part about this is that when you do find that unique facility, which I have run into some that are like, I've never seen anything like this, it is really cool because it's like, oh wow, it's something completely different. But the question that raises is like, would that have, are we in a better situation because most of them are the same, and so that one few unique one is really special, or would it have felt really, really cool if they were all unique? It's hard to say without experiencing the game in that way. So I wouldn't be able to say, but it is something that I've noticed, and it is an interesting choice, in my opinion, to populate these planets with identical structures. A little bit of an oversight, I would say, unfortunately. The low gravity gunfights are pretty cool, honestly. Like the really low, like when you're on like a planet with like 10% gravity and you can like jump over the whole facility and like shoot at people as you're like coming down on them like really slowly. It's pretty cool. I've never really played a game that had that kind of mechanic, like when it comes to just simple first person shooters, typically you're just like your army guy on Earth in the Middle East, and there's not a lot of variation there. So yeah, the low gravity is a pretty cool mechanic, like being able to jump around on top of people and like gun them down like as you're coming down. Like it's pretty cool, and it opens up a lot of like cool gameplay moments. So I'll give them some credit for that. That's pretty fun. Also, like throwing grenades, you can throw grenades like a mile away in low gravity because there's low gravity. So yeah. The dialogue choices are pretty diverse. I saw a lot of people when Fallout 4 came out complaining about the dialogue options because they boiled down to basically yes, yes, sarcastic, tell me more, and then like no, but actually yes. There wasn't a lot of variation in Fallout 4. I didn't really see many people talk about that with Skyrim. I'm sure people did. Maybe I just didn't see it. I was a lot younger when Skyrim came out, so I wasn't as focused on like reviews and stuff, I guess. I don't know. But I feel like Skyrim's the same exact way where like you can't really be a bad person in Skyrim. There are some quests like the Dark Brotherhood faction where like yeah, you're killing people, but like that's just the faction. Like you're still basically a good person. And it's like it's just for that one faction and then you're right back to being like the hero. So in Skyrim and in Fallout 4 you couldn't really be the bad guy. In Starfield you can be an asshole, you can be a murderer. I mean, like they really let you do some crazy ass shit. So that's pretty cool. Right now I'm doing a playthrough where I'm just basically a good guy, but I can see this game having a lot of replayability in the sense of like you can go back through and choose all of these options where you just mercilessly gun people down. Like it's pretty cool that the game allows you to do that. I will say, kind of as a caveat to that though, that there are a good number of situations where like the thing I would want to say is not an option. And so it's like it's a little bit frustrating in that sense, but I get it. They can't give you unlimited options. We're not quite at that point yet where you could just like talk to the game. I've seen mods for Skyrim that incorporate like Chat GPT, where like you can just speak to the game, or I guess it's like a text prompt where you like type in what you want to say, and like the characters in the game using like AI modulated voices will like respond to you specifically in regards to what you said. Like the future of this type of game is pretty crazy, but we're not quite there yet. I'm sure Bethesda's probably experimenting with that in the background, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, sometimes the thing you want to say is not an option, so you're kind of at a loss, and you just kind of have to choose the lesser of two evils. But it is what it is. We're running out of space again, so the rest of this video is going to be in black when that finally cuts out, because I doubt I'll be able to do this again. But let me see what else I've got here. Oh, again, this is kind of a middle ground one, a middle ground point. I can see people liking this, I can see people disliking this, but in Skyrim, when you completed a faction quest, you would inevitably always become like the leader of that faction, which it didn't make any sense realistically, but it was just the way the game handled it. So, like when you completed the College of Winterhold questline, you became the Archmage, even though there were people that had been there for like 100 years before you, right? It's like you have pretty much no claim to the title of Archmage, but they still gave it to you because, well, you're the main character. You're the player in this single player game. Obviously, they want you to feel special. In Starfield, that's not really how it goes. You finish this quest line and they're like, all right, you're still a lowly peon, you little bitch. You do not really rise through the ranks in this game, at least as far as I can tell. Like I said, I feel like I haven't done really that many of the faction quest lines, but I've done a handful of them at this point, and in none of them have I become like the leader of the faction. So like it's a give and take. I can see some people liking it where it's like, it's certainly more realistic. You're not just going to become, the leader of the entire government overnight. But I can see some people disliking it because it does feel a little bit less special, because it's like the faction quest just ends and it's just like, all right, that's it. It's like, oh, I didn't. Okay. You do get some unique gear, so like they'll still reward you at the end of the faction quest with like, you'll get a cool gun or a cool uniform or something. But it is a little bit less special, I would say, than Skyrim, where you just become the leader of the faction at the very end. So it's just different. Some people will like it, some people will dislike it. I would say personally that I would lean more towards dislike. I get it. I do get it. Um, but I do kind of miss that like feeling of being like in charge at the end, you know. Let's see, what else do we have? What else do we have? Um, okay, so these are just some minor like annoyances, but the resources in the game, the resources are like, you know, the the things that you mine and like the random little things that you pick up that you use for like crafting and stuff, for like your modifying your weapons and your spacesuits and stuff. The resources are ridiculously heavy, ridiculously heavy. You'll go into a facility and you'll pick up like three things and you're over encumbered. It's like they give you no carry capacity at all, and like all of the resources are ridiculously heavy. I don't know why they did this. I guess they wanted you to not be able to like pick up whatever you wanted, but it's just kind of annoying because like, you know, in Skyrim, basically the only thing that would like take up actual carry capacity in your thing was like armor and weapons, which those are the things you want to carry around anyway because you want to be able to switch between the different things that you've got. You know, that's how you play the game, and you want to play the game and have variety, right? So it makes sense that those are the things that take up a majority of your carry capacity so that you can carry more of those things. In Starfield, I mean, obviously you can carry a lot of weapons and stuff, but you basically have to choose between, do I want a lot of carry capacity for my resources, or do I want carry capacity for like my spacesuit and like my weapons and stuff? It's a little annoying. It's a little annoying how much the resources weigh. Um, the weather. See, some of these planets are like minus 400 degrees Celsius. Like so cold that you would die immediately if you like stepped out. Um, Obviously you're wearing a spacesuit, but the spacesuits have different, you know, amounts of like protection values, right? They have different stats. So some of the spacesuits are better oriented for, you know, protecting you from the cold weather. Like they have like thermal protection or like corrosive protection or radioactive protection, you know, different things like that. But it doesn't seem to matter as far as I can tell. I don't know. This actually might be a bug. I'm not sure. Because the game actually has, you know, in the bottom left, you've got like your little like compass type thing, and that like tells you stuff about your environment. And when you go to these planets that are like super fucking cold, it'll be like your thermal protection has been depleted. But then nothing happens. It's like my thermal protection's been depleted. I'm on a planet that's minus 400 degrees Celsius. I should be frozen. I should be a popsicle. But nothing happens. And there are like status effects in the game. Like I've gotten frostbite, I've gotten burned before, but I never get those status effects from just like being on a planet. Like it's always some other like thing that makes that happen, right? Um, like you'll never get a status effect as far as I can tell from just like walking around on a planet. And it doesn't matter what kind of spacesuit you have. Like I said, there are different spacesuits that are better for thermal protection, so you would think that you would need one of those to be like on a really cold planet. But the spacesuit I wear right now is really like slim, and it has like no thermal protection whatsoever. And I'm on these planets that are minus 400 degrees Celsius, and my guy doesn't care. He doesn't care. It doesn't do anything. So that is a little weird. Honestly, you know, I don't think I'd want the game to be really strict about that. I wouldn't want the game to be like, you know, you can't be here without this specific spacesuit, because that, you know, that limits you. But I think it would be interesting to play the game if it were more like it punished you for being in the wrong place, you know, ill-equipped, so to speak. So like, yeah, if I go to a planet that's minus 400 degrees Celsius and I'm wearing a spacesuit that has no thermal protection, like, yeah, I'm gonna get frostbite like right away, you know. I think it'd be interesting. Yeah, I'm thinking kind of something along the lines of what Breath of the Wild did, where like, you can be in the cold regions in that game without protection, but you will slowly lose life. So like, it's up to the player how they want to approach the situation. They can be there, but then they're gonna, have that debuff of constantly losing health. So it's something they've got to keep their eye on, or they can just come properly equipped and they don't have to worry about it. Like I said, maybe that was actually the way the game was intended, because the status effects exist in the game. I've gotten frostbite before, but it wasn't from that. And like I said, the screen even tells you that your thermal protection has been depleted, but then nothing happens. So maybe the game is just not functioning properly. I'm not 100% sure, but it is kind of weird that these planets are like so inhospitable, but then your guy doesn't care. Your followers are even like, "Whoo, it's cold here." It's like, is it cold here? Because my guy doesn't care. Also, minus 400 degrees Celsius is not cold. That is like, you die. You die. That is not cold. That's not chilly. That is death. All right. I don't know. Just kind of funny to me. But yeah, that's my impromptu review of Starfield. Like I said, overall, I'd say I'm enjoying it. It does remind me a lot of Skyrim, both in good ways and in bad ways, technically. So, yeah, there you go. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I don't even know how long this has been. Probably like, okay, it looks like it's been around like 50 minutes long. So, wow, it's pretty long. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed. If you're sleeping by this point, then sweet dreams. If not, then just watch it again, I guess, or watch one of my other videos. Up to you. Or, go play basketball or something. The world's your oyster. You can do whatever you want. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.